and not only does it record it, but then it can communicate it back. And that's for me where texture comes into play. I think I started to really think about it when my grandfather, who was blind and knew nothing about art or pots, but he took a liking to my pottery just through touching it. And he would give me a lot of information, believe it or not, like whether or not the lip worked or how it felt, and he would just pick at things, you know. And so when I was wood firing, I remember he was so critical of a lot of things that I'm glad he was, because I just didn't think about it, you know, like a real pot that could visually look crusty, right? It could look like something you pulled out of the ocean, but it doesn't have to feel that way too, right? You can like sand it, and there could, you know, so just he brought an awareness to me about touch, you know, like with these pots, like the black pot there, like it's sanded to the point where it feels like a river rock, and it just, you know, it just feels really great in the hand.
Can I pause you for a
Yeah, go ahead.
And say, I've seen people use different things to sand pottery, and I was wondering if you really just use sandpaper, because I feel like that would be really laborious.
A diamond sanding pad, but yeah, sandpaper.
Wow, so it's just hand on pot. Wow. Okay.
400 grit, 600 grit, 800 grit.
Did you say use a Sureform grater, whatever that is?
Sureform?
What is that?
Sureform's for wet clay. That's different.
Oh.
Yeah. But I did recently buy a sanding wheel that attaches to a bench grinder.
And it turns that flippy thingy?
Yeah.
I saw that, and I was actually, that's why I was asking you, because I was like, I really, like, I don't have a lot to invest.
That's
in
good.
ceramics,
I mean,
I was wondering how your experience with that was.
That's good. It's not as good as that.
Yeah.
Like, it'll get me to a point where I'm close, and then I can go in and do the finishing.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, that tool is really excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't even, yeah, I was just talking about texture, right? You unplug me, maybe? It's all right. Yeah, there you go. No, we lost juice.
But sometimes we do lost all the power.
Yeah.
Just watch it. You press the emergency button.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had my coat hung on it before. Maybe that works better.
So how many workshops that you do per year?
A year, I don't even know how many. I really just kind of add up. My wife and I kind of figured, like, once I get to the point where I've been, like, I add up my time away from home and it reaches 2 months, then I'm done.
And then you save the time for your studio work.
Because that's really where, like my friend Adam, he teaches a lot of workshops, and he probably makes most of his income doing that. And I'm not that way at all. But you know, having little kids, it's really hard being away. Just because they're so energetic, and there's so much work involved in a family, and when I'm away, like when I'm here right now, I mean, I'm with you all. Like, they're on their own, you know. But yeah, so, you know, once that's kind of the math. I've figured out mathematically, like, once it adds up to being away to like 7 to 8 weeks, I'm like, I can't take any more on this year. That's kind of where it's at. So, you know, I'm here now on Thursday of this week. I got a glaze tomorrow and load a kiln tomorrow night, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm part of the Philadelphia Pottery Tour. And then the following week, I fly to Austin, Texas for 4 days for Art of the Pot, which is that thing. And then from Austin, I fly to Archie Bray, spending a week there. You know, it's just like, and then the summer workshop stuff, it's very busy. This is the busy time of year for that.
Where are you from?
That's, where do I live now?
Yeah.
I live upstate New York, about 2 hours north of here,
Oh, okay.
in a town called Shokan, which is right outside of Woodstock. Right off Route 28.
I almost moved the area. I was thinking about when I was should I go close to school or should I go away from school?
Yeah.
So I think about Woodstock.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists up there. It's a great community. Like, you know, people really are nice. I mean, they really care, like, about what you're doing, and you know, and like, and the neighbors are really. Not that they weren't on Long Island where I grew up, but like, it's just quieter, like pace. Like I go out like during the day, like at like noon, and it's just like silence. Like, and I live in a neighborhood, but I'm like, why is it?
Where in Long Island did you grow up?
I grew up in Comac.
Comac.
Yeah. Yep. I was born here in Bayside the first few years of my life. I was born actually at Manhasset Hospital, and then my parents moved to Long Island in 1982, and they just sold that house last year. Which is why I was able to afford my house. And they just, they still live here. They're in Bayside.
So you're visiting them after?
Correct.
Yeah.
Actually, my parents they built a house 4 miles from where we live upstate. So my mom, whenever I leave town, my mom, she doesn't like, you know, do everything I do, but she steps in for me. My mom and my wife are like best buds, so it works out really well that way.
How old were you when you started doing pottery?
When I started making pots, I was 24. Yeah, so most of you have a leg up on me. So
How old were you when you knew that you wanted to do this work?
23. 24, whatever I said. Like alright, I could give you the background.
What started you?
Yeah, so I went to School of Visual Arts straight out of high school. And like, I didn't want to go to college. I was heavily invested in skateboarding, and I was actually sponsored, and my core group of friends, like one of my friends is still a professional skateboarder, and that's how he makes his living. And he makes like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's very impressive. But I do for my kids, like I'm gonna teach them. I could still like do tricks, if that's what you're asking here. And so from the time I was like 10 until I was like 23, that's what I did, you know? And that's why I'm here today, because like I'm under no illusion that ramming myself into concrete over and over and over again and getting up and being beat up and bruised and you know, knowing that, like practicing just to the point where you you complete what you know, whatever you're trying to do, whatever trick it is the goal, right? And it's the same thing here, right? There's a lump of clay, you're wrestling with it, it flops over, you wedge it back up, you go over it again. You're heartbroken, but things explode, you know, you break a bone, you know, and I'm going back and forth from, you're not breaking bones doing this, hopefully not.
Okay, you don't know how it goes.
Yeah, I know. So like looking back, like having that hindsight and the ability to sort of like be like, oh, that's why I'm able to do this. Like, because a lot of potters were athletes before they were potters. So there was some kind of rigorous discipline thing that they did before they came to it. Because it requires a lot of discipline, right? It requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of failure. It requires a lot of resilience, you know, all of those things. And then, you know, when you're a kid, you don't realize, like, you just think, oh, I like skateboarding. But like, looking back on it, like I didn't even know what I was exposing myself to. Like, as far as like that ability to just keep working at something over and over and over again with no real reward. That's the other key, right? Like, I'm not doing it just for self-satisfaction and for my friends to be like, yeah. Like, that's kind of what it was about. And so I really, I mean, I without a shadow of a doubt, that's why I make pots today. So I didn't want to go to school, but my mom had the foresight to be like, you know, to maybe, she believed in me as a skateboarder. Like, they supported everything I ever wanted to do. But she basically filled out the applications. Like, I was always talented at drawing, and so she filled it out. Like School of Visual Arts, Parsons, Pratt. Like, I applied to all the art schools, and I got into a few of them, and I decided to go to School of Visual Arts, and that's where I went for my freshman foundations, I guess it was called. But back then it was, I don't know what it is now there, but it was very classical. Whereas like, and that's why I went there, because Parsons was more design driven, and School of Visual Arts was very classical in the sense that like foundations year there was like sculpting, like chiseling stuff, and you know, painting was like traditional oil painting, and like we didn't have any design classes. So I went there for a year, and then I think at some point I realized how expensive it was. Because back then it was just kind of like this bubble where people were just like going to school and like, oh yeah, loans or whatever. Like, I don't think any of it like really registered. So after my first year at SVA, I was able to have a strong enough portfolio that I applied to Pratt, and I got a bunch of scholarships, so I transferred to Pratt. And I was a semester away. I really loved Pratt. Had some really fantastic teachers there. And I was about a semester away from graduating with my painting degree, and I decided to drop out. Because that's what a 21-year-old does, right? Like, there was a lot going on, like personally, like some heavy things happened to me in my life, and like I just couldn't deal with it all, so I wanted out. And so I moved back home. And when I got back home, my parents were like, it's fine, like, drop out, whatever, but like, you're gonna work, you know? And so I did what you do in like, what year was that? That was 2001. And what you did back then was like, you picked up a newspaper and you went to the wannets. Yeah, like, that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. I don't even know what people do if they need a job. And I found this job. They were looking for an assistant to like work at this cabinet making shop in Deer Park. And so I just went, interviewed, got the job because they could tell that I was very handy. The other thing, I learned a lot from my dad. Like, my dad's a locksmith for his, that's how he makes his living, but he can do anything as far as wiring a house or plumbing or any of that stuff. So I worked as a cabinet maker for 2 years, and then my little brother, who's always been a graphic designer since the time he was like 10, he's always been designing. He went to school and got his degree at SUNY New Paltz, and I went up to visit him in 2003, and we were walking around campus, and we walked through the ceramics studio because it was the first room on the left. When you walked into the art building at SUNY New Paltz, and you look to the left, that's the ceramics studio, and there were lights on and people in there, so we just walked in there, and I saw some people throwing pottery on the wheel, and was just like, ah, that's cool. You know, and then that following semester, I was at New Paltz taking ceramics classes, and I had already, like, when I got to New Paltz, I didn't have to take anything, like, elective-wise, because I had done all of it. Like, I didn't, so I was able to really focus on clay when I was there, which was really great for me.